Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. As usual, I'm Bradley and I'm joined by my long-term partner. I think we can use that as a term, Stu.
I think that's appropriate. Don't think we'll step on anyone's toes doing that.
No, I think my actual partner would be glad to get rid of me. So, it's a win-win.
Yeah, who could blame him, eh?
No, definitely not. So, in a week where the world seems to be turning in on itself yet again, video games have been an escape. And before we get into the good and the bad of the industry later in the episode, let's talk about what we've been playing. I know, as usual, you go first.
Well, I wanted to talk about Redout, which is quite an old game now, comparatively speaking. But it's I played it on PC, and it's a Wipeout style game. And I say style in that I mean it's completely ripped it off, sort of front to back, basically, which is no bad thing because, I mean, God, Sony aren't doing them anymore and Psygnosis had disappeared, so why the hell not? And it's VR. That's the main key ingredient here that drove me towards it. So I saw it in a sale for like £3 on Steam. Thought, I'll give it a go. And yeah, it's absolutely great. So I was really surprised. I thought, it'll probably be okay, but it'll probably be in the same sort of tier as, stuff that's come out like Fast RMX and things like that.
Yeah.
Which I thought were kind of average, maybe just touching above average. But no,
they was decent if there was never a Wipeout kind of games. If Wipeout didn't exist, that'd be brilliant. But because Wipeout did exist, they are average.
Yeah, it's such a high bar. I mean, as a sort of offshoot of that discussion, Wipeout is one of those things that got not the entire formula correct first time, but so close to what was the perfect formula that you can't beat that. You just can't beat it. You can only copy it. So luckily in Redout, they've copied it fairly closely. The only real difference being they've sort of mapped the sort of tilt onto the right stick, tilt left and right, so sort of strafe instead of using air brakes. So it's kind of like assign some functions to the second stick. But that's basically it. And it looks and sounds very, very similar. So in VR, that works brilliantly. And it's not as good as Wipeout Amiga Collection in VR, but it's still, really great. It's so nice to go to a new game like that and it be so good. So really chuffed with that.
See, what I've actually found is quite a few of these that actually work really well. Because I quite like Wipeout. I'm not very good at Wipeout, but I still enjoy playing it. And my fault with it has always been, what are these clones like? And I've actually been okay with them. So there's one I've got called Pacer, which used to be called something else. And I can't remember what.
Formula Fusion,
that's the one.
And that's that on Kickstarter. So
that's pretty good. Again, it's not Wipeout, but it's pretty good. Ballistic or something like that. One of our followers, Fallows, I think he plays it. That's really good. That looks really fun to play. And that is a pure homage to Wipeout. It's kind of going, look, they're not making Wipeout anymore, so it's more Wipeout. But yeah, they are all pretty good. And having played Wipeout in VR, which is an amazing experience, that blew my mind. And that's probably the game that really sort of sold me on what VR is all about. I'd be looking forward to playing something like, mine's gone blank on what you said the game was called now, the one you've been playing.
Redout.
Redout, sorry, yeah, of playing that, because that was one of the ones I looked at and I wasn't too keen on to start with. But if that's got a VR option, then that's one I might jump into at some point as well.
Especially, if you liked the PSVR version of Wipeout, definitely. It's an absolute must-have and dirt cheap. So, go for it.
I've been playing a fair old amount, actually. I've spent a lot of time trying a few different games. There's a few I'm not going to talk about because I'm due to review them or do some videos for them. But there's two I really want to cover, and they couldn't be more opposite if they tried. One of them, if you've got your indie bingo cards out, ticks a lot of the boxes, and that's Dicey Dungeons, which is a roguelike deck building game that uses dice to progress through levels as you do like basically card battles. And it's got this really interesting premise of being in a game show where you can win whatever your heart desires, and that's the concept of it. Absolutely fantastic design to it, and it mixes like cards with dice for the battle. So you start off with like 1 dice, then you can get 2, 3, 4. You can earn more as you go through. And then you mix these dice with different types of cards, different attacks, defense, move, buffs, and all things like that. And it's really, really good. So you have a loadout that you must have, and you get a number of slots, and you can plug these cards into these slots wherever you see fit. So you can have, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you've got 6 individual slots. Some cards will take up 2 slots. Some cards will take up 1 slot. That kind of thing. And things like that. So it's just really good combination of learning synergies, much in the way you do with Slay the Spire and other games like it. It's done in this really sort of cutesy, hand-drawn, cartoonish style, but it's brutal. There's kind of a darkness to it at the same time, which is really weird. There's the lead character in it, the boss, if you will. She's very sinister. And I just really like it, and it's one I've always had my eye on and never got round to doing, and it was kindly donated to me by a reader / listener of the show. I'm so glad I finally got to play this.
It sounds very much like a board game, a modern board game, not like Monopoly or crap like
that.
Yeah. I think they're becoming increasingly more popular. That kind of conversion to a video game style, so you can play it on your own when your mates aren't around.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of these as well. It's like if you, in years gone by, before sort of like the internet got good enough for stuff like this as well, you either had to have everyone together to play an actual physical ball game, set it up, make sure everyone's in the mood and stuff like that, which is, whatever. And then you saw the introduction of asynchronous games that took concepts of something like Advance Wars, which isn't a ball game, but it was asynchronous and was board game-esque in its setup, more like I suppose a Risk or something like that in its influence. Then you saw the likes of Magic the Gathering go digital, so you got Hearthstone or Hearthstone. I always get that one wrong. And now you're seeing like stuff like Dicey Dungeons, which is actually just a single-player game, but it has that board game aesthetic. If you look at Armello, which is generally it's a ball game just purely in digital form. And I think that's what we're getting at. I'm really glad we are getting these sort of games that are ball games, but taking advantage of what a digital platform offers.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. There's definite, even being able to see the background, even if it's RNG, so random number generator, even if it's that, there's something reassuring about seeing the dice and seeing the physical process of what's making that decision for you that still feels quite tactile, even though it's on a screen. It's kind of weird.
Which makes it seem strange to me that we still haven't had a complete digital representation of a Dungeons and Dragons. That just comes across as bizarre to me, because when you look at all these, and you could have it that you can have an AI-driven story, and you do the dice rolls, and that affects things. It does that, or you could set that so that basically you've got Dungeons and Dragons you can play digitally with someone from Australia, America, UK, Germany, Japan, France, wherever, and you can just play the game across there, just using the digital format as the background. And that's it. The AI doesn't drive the story. You can drive the story, but you've got the virtual dice rolls there, which everyone can see. And it's just really surprised me that hasn't become a thing when you look at the amount of different variants of board games there are. It's not a complaint. It's just one. For someone like me who's never really been confident to jump into a Dungeons and Dragons session, for example, but has always been intrigued by it, it'd be the great starting point for me. So if someone wants to make that, there's your millions there. You can make your millions there.
There's tools that you can buy on Steam that allow you to gather round virtually, but that's not. I don't think it guides any of the story at all. I think it's just like a tool set.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of VR things that allow you to be gathered together. But I think there's a way there's a fusion of those that you could have, and just gather all in VR, have a very themed backdrop for you all sitting there, have avatars, and then have little character models that you could then drop onto a map very quickly, and a map that you could create. Sort of like Populous, the Populous map.
Yes.
Like something like that you could put together really quickly with your hands. Yeah, they should be doing that because it's a great idea.
Yeah. I also want to see an updated digital representation of the original board game Atmosphere.
I've never played that one.
You've heard of it though, Stu.
I have heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
So I played this once. A friend of mine or a friend of the family had it, and I played it once. And honestly, it's not very good. But the concept behind it was so far ahead of its time that you basically go through this quest and you use a VHS tape and you rewind and play and all stuff like that, and it plays through. I want to see someone make that game an homage to it. I'm not saying actually make Atmosphere, but where you actually, in the game itself, you actually have to use the VHS player to go through and stuff like that. Again, maybe a VR experience, but yeah, it's like... Reminder, I suppose, because Nightmare was 30 years old this week, or 33 years old this week, something like that.
Yeah. So I'll do a play-by-play commentary. So Brad's gone to sort out Edith, his daughter, who is a lovely girl and also a handful, but very good fun. And you should watch her and him on the Twitch stream because they are broadcasting at least once a week, showing off stuff like Fall Guys and fun stuff that's easy for Edith to get to grips to. She gets bored quite quickly, but for the time that she's there, very good entertainment.
Can I carry on now?
What about the fire one?
We'll do maybe the fire one, but can I carry on now?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to go back to your phone while I carry on?
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with editing that one, Stu.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
It's real, so... Do you know what? We'll keep most of that in, apart from the actual gap.
Fair play.
So, aside from Dicey Dungeons, because I'm not even going to try and remember exactly where I was with that last session, I've also been playing Drift 21, which, from the outside, looks like one of those crappy simulator games, because what haven't we done that simulator games that is just not going to be as good as anything that was made properly? You assume it's going to have really poor physics and it's shoehorned in a few bits and it's a fun for 5 minutes game. But, dear my God, I went down a rabbit hole with this game. I can't drift to save my life, which suggests the mechanics on it are spot on. But the bulk of this game is you in a garage, like first person, you're in a garage building a car that's that's then meant to go into like a drift circuit and do the competitions and things like that. So you walk around the garage, you have to choose the right engine, then you fit the engine. Once you've got the engine fitted, you need to then sort of raise the car up on the garage thing that lifts the car up. I don't know what they're called. It's why I'm not a mechanic. Sorry, 2 seconds. Yeah, so you lift it up on that thing. What's it called? A hydraulic lift, maybe? I don't know.
Probably. Let's go with that.
Neither of us are mechanics, are we? So
let's call it a car sponge.
Yeah. And then you get under the engine and you have to fit the individual sort of like the brake line or the fuel pump and things like that. So it's basically like PC simulator or PC building simulator, for cars, that section of it. And it's really, really good. You have to manage a budget and things like that. And then you have to go and do tests, bring the car back, make adjustments, and loads of little things like that are way beyond what I actually understand about cars. And again, if I can't understand it, then I'm assuming it's a good representation, because all I know about cars is they've got 4 wheels and you drive them. That's about all I get from cars. So it's got all these bits. But it's a really interesting game, and one I thought I'd play, and I'd have to try and be kind about it, because I'm not someone who likes to really sort of like dump on a game, especially when it's tried. I thought, well, I'm going to try and be kind about it. But yeah, bloody hell, it just drew me in, and I can't get enough of it. I'm going to do, I don't know if I'm going to do a live stream of it or whether I'll just do a 5-minute ramble of it. But yeah, it's so good. And one I hope it doesn't fall too far under the radar. It's just unfortunate. The marketing of it looks like generic simulator plus date part 964, unfortunately. So, but it's really good.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one, and I don't think from the name that I would get what it was about.
No, that's again, it doesn't, fair play to them for not putting the word simulator into it, because that generally, unless it's Microsoft Flight Simulator or one of the popular ones like Train Simulator, which are well known, generally, if it's got simulator in it, you kind of go in, gonna be a bit crap. But it just doesn't convey that this is what it is. I really wasn't expecting to go and get this really intricate level of building a car. I was expecting just to go around drifting really poor mechanics, but it's just not. It's like two games in one. I really like the building of it. I wish I had the option of basically hiring a driver to then go and do the drifting part of it, because I can't do that. So I don't know if I've built the car well or not. But yeah, it's one of those. I can't recommend it as, you've got to go out and buy it. But if you see it in a sale on Humble or Steam, definitely worth picking up for a few quid.
Cool.
So anything else from you that you've been playing?
Well, only the continuing obsession with Elite Dangerous, which is ongoing.
What solar systems are you in? Are you in far-flung solar systems, or have you tried to make your way to the Milky Way?
No, I've just been quite local. So I'm in my first ship. I suppose I'm about 10 hours in. And so I've got a refinery and a mining laser. So they're the two components you need to get started with mining, which nets you a fair bit of cash. And also doing sort of courier missions to build up my money.
Yeah.
And it's just doing, they're ostensibly they're mundane tasks, but they just feel fun and fresh for some reason, just probably because of the amount of precision you need. And when you become accustomed to it, you feel not godly, but you certainly feel like, very proficient and skilled. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's one of the Elite Dangerous, along with, I think, Flight Simulator and things like that. They're one of those games where they've almost got to be hard to pitch, where you're going, look, it's just a super, mundane. You don't do all these tasks properly, and, you have to travel from one side of the galaxy to the other in real time, or at least, a space-based real time. Everything's properly mapped. It's like, yeah, it sounds great, but will it get boring? You're like, no. Trust me, it doesn't get boring. It's the same with Flight Simulator. Going, the most exciting parts of Flight Simulator are generally taking off and landing. And you're like, well, can you just do that? No, I think the real-time flight from London to Newcastle is still plenty. And yeah, I'm happy to go and do an 8-hour flight from Gatwick to New York and enjoy the flight itself. It should be boring, but it's not. And I think Elite Dangerous nails that as well, because combat is possible. But I actually enjoyed Elite Dangerous avoiding the combat and just doing all the other bits.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay away from the combat. I don't really want to get into fights.
No, you can get space fight games if you're that desperate for that. And I think, I like Elite Dangerous that you sometimes have to, but you can still avoid it for the most part. You can be a bounty hunter if you want, or you can just do legal trading and all things like that. It's just wonderful game.
Sure is.
So we're going to go from the wonderful, and do we stick with the wonderful, or do we go? No, I'll tell you what, we're going to bash on Nintendo for a little bit.
Why not? Yeah.
Why not? Because Nintendo have had a bit of a free ride these past few years, because they've hit high after high after high. But some of their moody practices are coming back in. I, like everyone, and I assume you was, Stu, was eagerly anticipating what Nintendo would do for Mario's 35th birthday. Would we agree with that?
Well, I saw all the rumours that something was coming, but I was like, 35 years? Oh, all right then, fair enough.
No, just get really excited, otherwise it doesn't work.
Okay, yeah, no, I was dead excited.
And then they unveiled a few bits, but then Super Mario All-Stars should have been Super Mario All-Stars 2, get rid of program Nintendo, but Super Mario All-Stars 3D Collection. Yep, absolutely wonderful. Glad to see that. 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. Needs Galaxy 2, but we'll let them off. Showing the history of the 3D Marios before we get to the current point, essentially. And it's absolutely brilliant to see. I was like, yeah, I'm all over that. And then Nintendo announced you can get this game from September the 18th. That's really good. And it will no longer be available after March the 31st. That's all right. You know, I understand limited physical editions. It happens. And it's a good way to drive sales. And yeah, so if that's what you want to do, Nintendo, that's fine. I'll get it digitally. Can't afford it straight away, but I'll get it digitally. Oh wait, no, that's limited as well. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, and it's insidious as well. This isn't just Nintendo's going to be Nintendo. It is absolutely insidious practices from Nintendo here that is damaging. There is no need, when it's a first-party IP, to limit how long it is available for digitally. By the nature of being digital, that game can't run out. It can't run out because it's a digital. You get the one file and then you produce copies of that file. It's not a VHS where every time you play it, it gradually loses quality. And who thought in 2020 I'd make 2 VHS references in one podcast? And it got me to thinking. At first of all, I was like, oh, really, Nintendo? Are you really going to do that? And I was like a bit peeved. And it was like, oh, great, now I've got to make sure I can get this game before it stops being available. And then it got me to thinking why this is disgusting and why Nintendo need bringing down a peg or two with regards to this. They are creating a false demand for something by limiting the stock. And they are preying on the concept of fear of missing out or FOMO. And I know that's been something that's been joked about in time, like the fear of missing out is like kind of one of those jokey mental health scenarios, but it is an issue. And it's one of the reasons I got into massive amounts of debt when I was younger and still struggle with a lot of things, because when you create a scenario where you've got the haves and have-nots, that's when you create a danger. I was one of the have-nots at school all the time. I didn't really have name trainers, and I was mocked for it. I was mocked at school for being poor, for not having the best things. And I would admit it now, that led to me actually going and stealing a pair of name trainers out of someone's front porch because I wanted to show that I could have name things. My mum couldn't afford it. I couldn't put that on my mum. And I think I was 12, 13, and I stole a pair of trainers because I wanted to be one of the haves. I didn't want to be a have-not. And it was then led to, as I got a job when I left school, and new consoles or new games were released. And it was like, well, I'm going to have that. I'm going to go out and I'm going to have that. And that led to me sort of prioritising that over everything else, over a lot of other things, because no longer were people going to mock me because I didn't have the best new thing. And the same happened when my son was born. I controlled it a bit more now, but it was a case of I made sure he had everything he ever wanted. Not spoiled him, but he wanted to try music. He wanted to try the guitar, so we went out and we got him a guitar to make sure he had that. He showed interest in certain toys, so we got him those toys and made sure he had them. And that was partly is giving your child the chance to experience new things. That's something you've obviously got to do. But it was also that my child is not going to be a have-not. He's not going to be mocked because he cannot have the latest, greatest, newest things. And it's why I wanted to make sure, when he was the age he was, and he knew what video games were, he knew what consoles were, and he wanted a PS4, that he got one on launch. Luckily it came in around his birthday. I wanted him to be someone who could go, yeah, I've got a PlayStation 4, and be popular at school maybe, because I never was. I never had that. And it had a massive effect on my mental health, that fear of missing out. And it still does to a degree. So what Nintendo are doing isn't just a bit of a dodgy practice in capitalist culture. It's dangerous. It is preying on mental health to make profit. This is how bad this is. Right. People are giving Nintendo a bit of a pass by going, oh, it's Nintendo. Nintendo are always going to Nintendo. Ask yourself this question. What if this was EA? What would the reaction be if EA turned around and said, FIFA, we're going to release it in October, it's done by January? What would be the reaction to that?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was rhetorical. Yeah, no, I mean, it would have been, they get their asses kicked, and quite rightly. And Nintendo are behaving disgustingly in this way. I think this in particular feels extremely lazy and extremely exploitative. So you've got 3 games that are, in most cases decades old, and all they've done is stick them together and gone, there you go, pay us however much, 40, 50 quid for them. And then they've had the gall to make it, forced scarcity and force people into thinking that they need to buy it immediately, probably because they knew if they had them available forever, people will go, oh, I'll kick that idea down the road. I'll see when I've got a bit more cash, I might pick it up. Yeah. And then they'll forget about it. But this, like you said, it's FOMO now because there's a finite time when you can get it. And it'll just be scalpers on eBay. It'll be people paying for it when they can't afford it. And it's a horrible way to behave. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is. FOMO has got to stop being a joke thing when it comes to mental health. We've started to accept a lot of things around mental health are dangerous and they need the respect. We've started to accept addiction and things like that these are proper things that need to be dealt with. But somehow FOMO is still the one where it's easily mockable and laughable, and people don't understand it. You get just get what you want. You haven't got to be a sheep or all this and all this. But that's what we've been programmed to be like. It's what every single capitalist company wants us to do. It's the reason they have time limited sales and things like that, and limited edition releases on things. And look, Nintendo with this, you've now got to go, oh, I've got to get this. I've got to get this because it's only limited. And I'm willing to bet at some point during that September to March period, Nintendo back down from this being limited, but not straight away, because they will top load those sales in September, October, in the build up to Christmas. And then once they start to see them drop, I think at that point they'll go, oh, you know what? I think we made a mistake making this limited. Digitally, we'll keep it on the store. And I think that's what's going to happen, because that's the practice you get. And it is playing on our mental health issues collectively that everyone has with regards to this culture of you've got to have what's available now and not wait for it.
I think I heard that they're planning to put them on the store individually to buy at some point in the future, rather than in a pack. So they will be available, but it'll be 3 times more expensive.
Do you know what? I wouldn't mind that. If they went for a limited time, we're going to bundle all these games together and you can get them at 50 quid, for example. Screw what they're actually doing prices-wise. You can get all these games bundled for 50 quid between September and March. From March, they will be available separately at 25 quid a piece. That I'm okay with, because that's a special. But you still got access to those games. And if you want to get them for cheaper, I get that. I still think it's bullcrap as a strategy, but it's a better strategy that still allows people who can't afford it straight away to go, I'll tell you what, I'll get them piecemeal down the line. At least I know I can. Rather than go, what can I do? What can I actually do to find this money to get this game? And it works with Mayo because, for example, if EA came out and went, hey, look, you can get FIFA's 17, 18 and 19 in a FIFA All-Stars bundle, and we're only going to type, no one's going to be bothered because it's FIFA and it gets updated every year. But this is Mario. This is special. It's, it's gaming's greatest icon in some of his most influential games of all time. But many who have a Switch now would never have played.
Yeah.
You know, the one that most people will have played is probably Galaxy at a push. A lot of kids, I say kids, people in their 20s probably haven't experienced Mario 64 or Sunshine. And that they're going to be going, oh, wow, well, yeah, I remember, like, you know, my dad or my uncle speaking about this game. So, oh, yeah, I'll get that. I need to get 50 quid together for it. For me, I've been scrabbling around going, how can I find 50 quid spare to get this game? And Nintendo, who had been, I suppose, seen as the light in AAA gaming over the past few years, are going down a slope that probably they're sharing a table with arrogant Sony, because Sony are going into their arrogant spell at the moment. On the flip side of all of that, let's talk about good guy Microsoft, shall we?
Yeah.
Now, it's very easy just to go, oh my God, the Xbox Series S is 250 quid. That is amazing. Because, yeah, 250 quid for next gen, it's cheaper than a Switch. It works as an additional system or as a main system. Absolutely brilliant. But this is only part of why Microsoft have been brilliant over the past, let's say 12 months or so. While Sony have been shouting from the rooftops, puffing out their chest with, look at all our exclusives, we're Sony, we're leading the race here, forgetting what happens when they get like that, when they become arrogant Sony again and they're into that cycle leading into the PS5. Microsoft have positioned themselves, they've looked at the global market at the moment, they've looked at what's going on in the world, and it's almost as if they've gone, right, look, people are not going to have as much disposable income over the next 3-4 years. They're looking at it and going, people haven't got £500 to £600 to shell out. So what can we do? And they've gone, right, okay, here's our next gen, most powerful console of all time to date. So Xbox Series X, absolutely wonderful looking console, bells, whistles, meant to apparently completely sort of like put consoles ahead of PC for the first time, obviously until Nvidia spoke out. And that's there for, 500 quid. I was priced out of that. I can't afford 500 quid, which is fine, because what Microsoft have done is they've gone, right, Game Pass. So you can buy that console for 500 quid and you've immediately got a massive library. There you go. Game Pass is in there. So that's an option for people who could just afford 500 quid but couldn't afford games to go with it. By the way, all your old controllers that worked on the Xbox One, yeah, no, that's fine. Use them. Not a problem. They're all going to work. Brilliant. Backwards compatibility with hardware. That's another tip for Microsoft. We understand some people probably can't even afford the console, let alone the games with it. So I tell you what, if you've got Game Pass Ultimate and you want to pay for that and you've still got your original Xbox there, not your original Xbox, but your Xbox One, not the original Xbox One, but the new Xbox One, get your naming conventions right, Microsoft. That's about the only thing you're blowing at the moment. We've brought out xCloud, and anything on Game Pass that's first party, you can stream and play on the Xbox One. That's going to happen. We're going to bring that out. xCloud will allow you to play Xbox One X games on an Xbox One via streaming. People want to try next gen without spending out extra? That's an option. So, what about people who haven't even got an Xbox One but they want to try it? Fine. Do you know what? That xCloud works on Android phones and will eventually probably work on PC as well. So there's an option. Oh, Game Pass for PC. So we've actually got a Game Pass library collection on PC as well, should you want that. But we need another option. What about the people who want a next-gen experience, but they don't want to do it via streaming, or they don't want to spend out £500 on a console? Maybe they've only got a 1080p TV still. Most people still only have a 1080p TV. What can we do for them? So we bring out a mid-range console that is next-gen capable of playing all the Xbox Series X games, processes it all at 1080p locally, but outputs to a 4K TV using modern technology upscaling, which we've seen through DLSS can be pretty damn spectacular results. That's good. What do we expect the price to be? I was expecting to see this Series S come out. I was expecting 349 to 399 quid. It's just removing the disk drive. But £250. That goes from I can't afford next gen at all to that puts me now to, well, that's the kids' Christmas sorted. £250 between them. They both love gaming. A next-gen console for £250. Yeah, sorted. I'm in. Microsoft, you've got me. Absolutely brilliant from them. Now, I know that's to make money. I know they're doing all this because they're a business and they want to make money. But what they seem to have realised, compared to the back end of the start of this generation, is the best way to make money is to be consumer friendly. You can make money and be consumer friendly, and that's what Microsoft have done. And they cannot be praised high enough for that.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a great strategy. It doesn't mean, like you say, that we're suddenly like, oh, big, this big business is suddenly great. It's suddenly, it's not an ultra capitalist organization, but it does mean that they're producing goods that people on a lower budget can get, and it's scalable. Yeah. So if they want a more powerful machine, they can get it. If someone else in the family ends up with a PC and they can play on the PC, they can do that. If they've just got an Android phone, they can get into xCloud. So yeah, it's really, really clever. And I can't help but think they're going to be hoovering up cash left, right, and center. And I think that PS5's got a great niche in that it's going to be very powerful and it's going to work very well and it's going to have the best exclusive games. But question mark is over the attach rate. So how many games are people going to be able to afford? So they'll push their money and they'll push their credit card so they can buy a PS5. But how many games are they actually going to buy? And how much is Sony going to be losing out by not offering something similar to Game Pass in the short term?
Exactly. So this is the difference. What Microsoft have done is gone, look, whatever your budget, we want to help you play video games. We want you to play it on our system in any way possible, whether you own a box or not. We want you to be able to play it. So we're selling to you. We want you, and that's anyone. We don't care who you are. Whereas Sony's attitude with how they're doing their pre-orders for the PlayStation 5 is they want us to prove to them that we're good enough to be in with a chance of owning a PS5. Because they've got this sign-up thing that looks at how much of a PlayStation fan you've been. So I think they use the data, from what I understand, to look at what purchases you've made. I believe they take down some of your social account details as well, so they can maybe look to see if you always praised the PlayStation brand or if you've been attacking them at any point. They use this data they're collecting to then put you on a list as to, okay, now you can be one of the ones who can possibly pre-order. And then you can pre-order. You're not guaranteed still, but you get the chance to pre-order. And Sony seem to have watched Black Mirror, and rather than looking at this bleak dystopian future, have gone, tell you what, boys, that's how we're going to start doing business.
Yeah.
We'll basically use people's social media as a way of credit checking them and proving that they deserve our product. And I've gone from, I really want a PlayStation 5. I like the PlayStation 5. I'm not a fanboy as such already. I'm not like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want that. The PlayStation 5 looks like it's doing lots of good things. It seems like they're going to have another push with VR, which would be compatible with it. But old controllers weren't compatible, but now they are with certain games if they get it to work with them. So you need to buy all new hardware for it as well. It's top price. They've only knocked $100 off. So what, they're going to knock about 50, 60 quid off for the discless version. And it's the one entry point. I'm priced out of that. And I've gone from, I'll get a PlayStation 5 and hopefully I can do Microsoft Game Pass on PC instead for a bit, and then maybe get one down the line. So do you know what? Screw the PlayStation 5. Screw the way they are wanting me to prove myself to them to be worthy of their product. Why, not happening. Microsoft have welcomed me with open arms. They don't care whether I can afford a top-of-the-range console with all the extra bits. They're happy for me to use what I've already got if I had to. Or they're happy for me to buy the cheaper version and use my old Xbox controllers. That's the sort of business I'm okay working with. And again, I know they're in it to make money. I'm not naive. They're not my friend. I don't attach myself to a company like that. But what they're doing is, yes, they're using, again, people's scenarios at the moment and going, look, we're cheaper so you can get on board. And they are possibly losing money on some aspects. But yeah, absolutely nailed it. If you've got the spare cash, you can get the best. If you haven't, you can still get on board. And the more people that are on board, the more successful they become. And with gaming moving more into a subscription-based thing, which I predicted 4 years ago, by the way. But Microsoft, they've read the market this time. They've got it spot on. Arrogant Sony are shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah. Well, the PS5 was quite tempting to me, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot in a way, because they said, oh, we've seen that our titles are selling really well when we put them on PC. We're going to start doing more of that. And I was like, great. Won't need to buy a PS5 at all. Because, yeah, I could just wait for your exclusives. Like Death Stranding, I was desperate for. But I waited for the PC one because I knew it'd be better. And, yeah, that's it. Where's my need for a PS4 anymore? So PS5 now, and especially what you said about their practices, has driven it pretty much entirely out of my mind. I mean, I might pick one up secondhand 6 years down the line if Gran Turismo 6 doesn't come to anything else. But if it comes to the PC, that's screwed from my perspective.
Yeah, no, and for me, I mean, I suppose this is where I am a fanboy to a degree. Sony's exclusives, Microsoft's exclusives aren't what sell me. What sells me is where I can play the most games. Any games. We know that I'm a massive indie fan. And if I can play indies on it, I'll play indies on it. And then I'll dip my toe into Halo, or I'll dip my toe into God of War or something like that. But they are never the driving force for me. And I know I'm an outlier when it comes to that. But all Sony seem to have going into this generation is their crop of exclusives. And that's it. There's nothing, unless you really want to play God of War, the next Uncharted or things like that, the next Last of Us, because I dare say there'll be a third Last of Us, so not The Last of Us, because there's always more. If you want to play, okay, you know what, great, and I'm not crapping on those games. They are wonderful games, but unless you are, that's it, that's all I want to play, then for me the options now becoming, is a PlayStation worth it? Because you have really got to invest, and I reckon you've got to invest. What is it? It's £500 for the main console. You have really got to invest on, obviously, games for that as well. And we know it's not just one game, and that will see you through for ages. So that £500, I think soon tops £1,000 by the end of a year, and that has to make you think about whether it's actually worth it for those few exclusives. Whereas at the moment with Microsoft, £250 to get into it if you actually want a next-gen physical product, plus a tenner a month for Game Pass Ultimate, and you've got a ton of games to play there. That's your investment. So what's that? It's 300. It's less than £400 for a next-gen experience across the year. Yeah, that's a major difference.
It does, and like you say, when things are the subscription model, they're spread out. The cost is spread out. So even though it's that 400, not only is it a lower value, but it's spread out over a longer duration as well. And that makes people, like myself, I'm coming to, you live in month to month, really. You're not living, with this huge amount of money that in the background that means that you're comfortable. So yeah, it's a huge thing, and I think they've made the right decision.
Yeah, and it's a really weird one, because when I saw that, I'm not going reaction video like running around screaming, cheering, because I don't generally do that. But I felt good that day, because I went from going, my son really wants a next-gen console for Christmas, and I don't think I could afford one for him. I'm going to have to let him down. And I've been trying to convince him, next gen, you don't need to jump in early. And I know you don't, because you usually want the second wave of next gen stuff. I was like, you don't really need to jump in early, do you, Lucas? And he's like, No, I suppose not. And that makes me feel crap that I'm having to try and undersell what these systems are to him, and try and convince him that it's not all it's cracked up to be, so that he wants maybe something else for Christmas. Two, I can get him next gen for Christmas. That's a great thing. And he hasn't got to miss out. Again, I suppose it is on the FOMO side, but not in the insidious way Nintendo are doing it at the moment. And I felt really good about myself that day, because I can give my son something I know he wants. And blah, blah, blah. Yes, it's not all about what you provide them money-wise or goods. It's all about how much you love them, etc., etc. And yeah, that is true. But he's a 13-year-old kid who wants things because that's what he's been driven to be told all the time. So he wants a next-gen console because he's told, like, what he's got is going to be obsolete. And now I can do it. And damn, if I didn't feel good that I could actually turn around to him, went back at school, went, Lucas, do you want an Xbox for Christmas still? I do, Dad, yeah, but you can't see how I can't afford one. I went, yeah, look at this. And his face lit up. So, yeah, it's good for your mental health when you get options and you're not priced out of something, because you don't have fear of missing out. You have possibilities.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I'm going to go probably back on myself. I carry on with it. It's just, yeah, absolutely spectacular stuff from Microsoft, and well done them. And it's not often I'll say that about a corporation.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the thing in that you have to have in the back of your mind of, well, okay, so things are good now with their strategy. The fact that they're an open platform comparatively compared to Sony's, and it's a subscription model, means prices can change. And that's the only thing. I mean, hardware prices traditionally fall, but subscription models, they tend to go up in price.
Yeah.
And they often decline in quality. I mean, you have to look at Netflix, for that. We watch it because it's got the most content, but in the past they had less content, but of higher quality, arguably. So I don't think either of us are naive enough to go, this is the final answer to all of these problems.
No.
But Christmas is coming. It's going to be in the start of the worst recession ever. We've got Brexit hanging over us. We've got COVID hanging over us. And loads of kids can afford to have an Xbox Series S, and that's got to be good news.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. So it's not often we do just a full-on gaming version of the podcast, but yeah, it's lots of good stuff and bad stuff happening that I felt needed addressing this week.
Yeah.
Talking of subscription models, by the way.
Nice segue.
I know. We have subscriptions, in a way. We are improving our Patreon, so you can get early access to the podcast on one of the tiers. And if you're on our Patreon, then you get to hear all the mistakes. That's got to be worth it. That's got to be worth your week, your month. For the price of a cup of coffee, that's what they always say, isn't it? For the price of a cup of coffee, you get to hear every podcast mistake we make. On the higher tier, you get exclusive pop culture style podcast, nothing mental health based, because again, nothing to do with mental health is ever going to be gated behind any kind of subscription or payment or anything like that. And I've also flirted with the idea, well, I've put it on there, of you can get some merch. There's a sticker for people who subscribe to the next tier up, the all access tier. So give it a look, give us feedback. What would you like to see? What would entice you into subscribing? Those kinds of things. And we'll take it all on board. Otherwise, you can join us on Discord for chat. We're on Twitter as usual. Twitch live streams will start becoming more regular. And then failing that as well, there is also another platform, YouTube, where we're doing more video reviews. The 5-minute ramble is new, and we'll get loads of other content on there as well. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next week.